All right, so let's try this, okay? Today we're gonna talk about this prefix called ting, right? Ting. And ting is a prefix meaning some sort of seasonal event is going on, right? Something in the time or the time or not time, but like some sort of seasonal time is happening in a specific year or maybe in a duration of a few months or weeks or something like that, right? And it's usually referred to with natural or nature related natural I guess natural phenomena that happen, right? And then you'll see this through the examples that I have written down, right? This is going to be a really short video again about ting. So the first example we have is ting init, right? Ting init, which means the hot season, right? Because the root word we have is init, and init means hot. It's the adjective for hot or the noun meaning hot. And if we prefix it with the ting prefix, we get a season, the hot season, right? Ting init sa ting adlaw or something like that, right? We get something along the lines of, wow, it's a period of time where it's hot. Or colloquially, we know this as summertime, right? Verano is the other borrowed word that we use, verano, but most Cebuano speakers will use ting init, right? Verano is just a borrowed Spanish word, but ting init is what we like to use a lot. And it just means hot, like the hot season, or simply the summertime. Next, we have ting bunga, right? Ting bunga. And the root word is bunga, meaning to bear fruit. We're bearing a lot of fruit, right? It's the season for bearing so much more fruit, right? The fruitful season, some sort of season where we're getting so much fruit from these crops that it's time to harvest them. So we're harvesting all these fruits. Tingbunga is the time of the time era, not era, but like the time of year, right? Now, remember the ba, right? That letra ba, the ba will change depending on the assimilation morphological process, right? So if we infix a pa in there, right? Ting pamunga, the bu changes to a ma, letra ma, ting pamunga, right? The ba changes to a ma, okay? But since we're not infixing anything and we're just talking about the fruitful season, it's just ting bunga, right? Ting bunga, fruitful season. It's the time to harvest your fruits. Next one we have is ting dagdag, right? Ting dagdag. And dagdag just means for specific trees and stuff like that to lose their leaves. Like their leaves are falling. Maybe it's because the trees are going into hibernation, or it's the time of year where trees are starting to shed their leaves because they're not getting enough sunlight or anything like that, right? Stuff like that. So it's loss of foliage, right? Loss of foliage is a season for fall, or in some places they'll say autumn, right? The autumn season or the fall season, loss of foliage, right? Dagdag, it just means for trees to lose their leaves. Oh, nagdagdag na, okay? And ting again just means that season or that time of year where the trees just lose their leaves, loss of foliage. The next one we have is ting humay. Ting humay is the harvest of rice season, right? Humay, right, we know as rice, like in its raw form. So when we're planting rice in its raw form, it's the palay that we get, the seed. No, I guess not the seeds, but the grains. It's called humay, right? Humay. It's the hard one, humay or palay, right? And humay just means the rice, the grain of rice. But when we prefixes with the ting humay, we get the harvest of rice season. Or it's the rice season, right? It's time to collect the rice and collect, or I guess reap what we sowed, so to speak. The next one we have is ting hulao, right? Ting hulao, and ting hulao just means dry season, right? It's drought. The drought hulao, it's a prolonged season without water, without rain. It's a drought, right? You get this a lot in deserts. You get this a lot in areas that are very arid, really dry. Really, there's no moisture in the air, right? Ting hulao, and it's the dry season. This usually happens. Um, this usually happens and coincides with the ting init, right? So you'll find a lot of coincidences among some of these. Ting ulan, right? Ting ulan is the rainy season or the wet season. Ting ulan. Actually, it's funny because in the Philippines, we have two seasons, the wet season and the dry season. Whereas in most Western countries and in most Western nations, right, they have your standard typical four season, which is very Eurocentric. But yeah, in the Eurocentric perspective, in the Western nations, they have your typical four seasons: summer, fall, winter, and spring. But in tropical nations, tropical countries such as the Philippines, there's only two seasons usually, and that's our uh, rainy season and the dry season, right? Ting ulan, ting init, right? Or ting ulan, ting hulao. Those are the two seasons that we have: the wet and the dry seasons. Um, and your wet seasons are usually coinciding with like the winter time or the winter months in the northern hemisphere, and then the dry seasons usually like your summertime in the northern hemisphere, because the Philippines is in the northern hemisphere. But yes, and finally we have ting tugnaw, right? Tugnaw meaning cold to touch, right? Cold to touch. So if you touch something, if you step outside and there's a cold chill or a cold breeze that blows into your face and you feel it in your skin, that's tugnaw, right? It's cold to touch. Remember, it's not bugnaw, but it's tugnaw, okay? Ting tugnaw, which means it's a cold or a chilly season. We know this in the Western world as winter, okay? Winter or winter, right? So here you go. Here you have it. We have our basic, just basic examples of using ting plus your season or whatever you want to call it. But it's the seasonal time or the time of year, or some sort of natural event that's happening during that time of year.